Okay, so we're back with part 2 now. So we've got all of our views laid out. Now, in this particular drawing, we don't necessarily need all 3 of these views, but we're going to run with this just to kind of see what happens. Because it's better just to show you guys that we can do 3 views. One thing to remember with drawings like this is it is always better to have more views to give more precise information than it is to try to do the same with less views and leave something up for interpretation. Okay, so the more views that you need, do them. Don't feel like you should be limited to the views that you should do. Okay, so so now we've got our 3 views. We've got our isometric view just up here sitting in chilling in the corner. That's just where he's going to be. He's just going to be sitting up there in the corner. We're not going to do anything else with him. Now our focus is going to be on these views right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do the work that we need to do. And again, the work that we need to do is we need to lay out all of our dimensions on here to be able to properly show what the information that is needed. Okay? So what I'm going to do is on this view down here, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the dimensions manually and show you guys how that's done. On this view up here, I'm going to insert the dimensions. If you remember back to when we were doing modeling and when we were doing dimensions and I was stressing layout of the dimensions, this is going to be wise because that layout of each one of the dimensions is really important as far as the overall readability of your print goes. Because again, the primary thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to make this easily readable because the person who's going to be reading this is also going to have another task. So they don't need to be trying to rack their brains trying to figure out what you put on there. They need it easy to read. Okay? So down here on this view, and we are on, if you go back in the book, page 3-32 is where a lot of this information is. So we're going to go ahead and lay out our dimensions here, and then we're going to insert them up here. So in order to insert dimensions inside a drawing, we're going to come up here to the annotation tab in our ribbon. We're going to go ahead and click on that, and we've got a whole bunch of stuff here. This is also in that S key. When you click your S key, we also have dimensions and annotations up there, but in our ribbon, we've got Smart Dimension, Model Items, so this is the one that we're going to click on to import our dimensions. We've got Spell Checker, who nobody cares about that. Then we've got the this one right here is the Notes. Okay, so Notes is important when you want to put text on your sheet. This is where that's going to come from. Then we've got balloons and a bunch of stuff that's done for assemblies. Then over here we've got geometric tolerances, datums. These are very important, but they're important in a different way. These all go into tolerancing and geometric GD&T, which is geometric dimensioning and tolerancing, which is the stuff that gives you even more information about what a finished part is supposed to look like and kind of where the gaps and stuff lay. But we'll cover that on a different day. Today, right now, we are just focusing on laying out a drawing. So we're going to go ahead and click on our Smart Dimension button here. Okay, now we're going to come down here to this view, because again, this view is the view that we're going to put the majority of this information in. And again, this is on page 3-32. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be clicking, and these dimensions go in exactly like the dimensions that you would put into a drawing. Okay, where it's done the exact same way. The dimension tool is identical to what they are on a drawing. The only caveat there is that when you drop a dimension on a drawing here, you're not going to get the option to edit the dimension. It's just going to be that dimension. So, one thing that we do need to do before we get started with that is we need to come down here to our units. We need to go edit document units. We're going to change this to 3 decimals because this does have some 3 decimal precisions in it. Okay? That's the same thing. That's done the exact same way also as you would do it in a part. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on our Smart Dimensions. And let's start with this top section up here. So let's go ahead and do an overall width of this top section. We're going to click on one side and then the other side. Click, and we're going to go ahead and lay that dimension out. You can see that I put that dimension up kind of high. The reason I put that dimension up kind of high is because we've got another dimension in here that we need to put on there. So let's go ahead and drop the dimension for the width of this notch. We're going to click on one side, come straight across, click on the other side, and come straight up. Okay. So now you can also see that I've done two different styles here. On this one up here, I've got the dimensions sitting in between my extension lines. The extension lines are these guys over here, and this is the dimension line up here. Then down here, I've got him sitting outside of my two extension lines. So the reason that I did that is if I take this 5 and I put it inside my dimension lines, you can see that I've got an impact in my dimension line over here. We don't want that. We want nice, cleanly spaced dimensions that are well separated so that they don't look like they're running into each other. They are well laid out so that they're easy to see the components. And as rarely as possible, we want the extension lines to not pass through a model view. Okay? So what I mean there is we've got this 0.5 inches, right? Now, we could put this 0.5 inches down here on the bottom. That would allow us to sneak this guy in here a lot tighter. However, we don't want to do that because right here and here, these extension lines are extending through our model. We do not want that. That kind of gummies up what our overall profile is of our model here. So we want to keep those from going through a model. We want to keep them up here and well separated. Now, Solidworks does have auto snaps. You can see, I'm not sure if you can see it, but as I'm going, the dimension will snap to a location. Typically, okay, so this would be inline. I've got one above. I typically will go 2 snaps above another dimension. Separate those dimensions by 2 snaps when you're going vertically like this. That just gives you enough space so that there's no interference here. If I drop this down, that's a little too close for me. Again, we're trying to make this as easily readable as possible. So I'm going to toss it up there. We're going to leave this one at 0.5. Okay, a couple of the other dimensions that we want in here. We need our angle here between this one and this one. And then we need a couple of heights. So let's go ahead and get back in our dimension tool. Let's drop the angle on... Actually, let's do the angle on this side. And you'll see why here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and put my angle down. Okay, and that's going to be 30 degrees. So now you can see that I've got an extension line crossing an extension line. That's okay. We can have extension lines cross extension lines. We don't want extension lines to go through model geometry. So I've got those. So now on the other side, let's do 1 dimension on this side and 2 dimensions on this side. The reason we're going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and click on, let's start on this side and I'll show you why we're not doing it the other way. So I'm going to click on that, and then I need this dimension from there to here, which is halfway down, which is 0.5 inches. Okay, so now I've got this over here, but you can see that the reason I'm putting it on the left-hand side and not the right-hand side is if I put it on the right-hand side, you can see that this is muddying up this dimension right here. Okay, that 30-degree angle is getting kind of interference with this one. Now, it is okay for extension lines to cross. However, you want to keep that to a minimum. And in order to do that, we're going to put this 0.5 inches over here on the left-hand side. Now, I did just notice that our 0.5 is kind of wonky, right? It's going vertically with our dimension rather than horizontal, despite the dimension thing. So what we want to do is we do want to change that. So let's go up here to our options. It's going to be the gear at the top of the screen. I'm going to click that button, and I'm going to go to Document Properties. I'm going to come down to Dimensions. Okay. Let's go to Linear Dimensions down here. Now we're going to change this. You can see, so again, that's Properties, Document Properties, Open, Expand Dimensions. Click on Linear. The far right-hand side of the screen, you can see Text Position. It currently has it so that the text position is parallel to the leader lines. We don't want that one. We want the middle one, which is horizontal, constantly, always horizontal. We're going to click on that one and hit OK. Now you can see that we've changed that. Now this is horizontal, and it's not all wonky over on the side anymore. So I'm going to leave that right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on my dimension tool again. I'm going to go from the bottom, actually it's from the top of that bottom plate that we created up to that same point over on this side. So let's go ahead and click there. And now we've got another 0.5, and we can click that on that side. Now, we don't technically need that 0.5 if we do one other one, but we're going to go ahead and leave it like this. In the book, they have actually what's called over-defined this dimension. So they've got 0.5 here, 0.5 here, and then on the other side, they've got from the top down to here, over here, which is 1 inch. And, oh, no, we're good, actually. They didn't. Because I actually forgot one. Lo and behold, I forgot a dimension. That's all right. So we're going to go ahead and click our dimension tool. And we're going to click on this one and this one. So we're actually going to put this, contrary to the way the book's got it, we're going to sit it right there in the middle. And again, that's because we're trying to minimize the amount of space that that we are pulling these extension lines through a model. With this 0.5, I could bring it over here, and this is one of the reasons that I got kind of messed up, was because the way that they've got it dimensioned in the book, it is not certain that it's this dimension here. Okay? It's significantly less certain that it's that dimension. Sorry, this is snapping, and it's driving me a little bit insane. There we go. Set that in the middle. Snap that guy there. Okay. So that's why I'm putting it there. It's more precise there, and it cannot be construed for any other dimension on this part. Okay, so the only other question here as far as dimensions and locations. So let's go ahead, and we got one more dimension that we're going to put in here. We're going to click on the Smart Dimension tool. We're going to come in here, and we're going to click the bottom here. Wait, brain fart time. Nope, not that one. All right, this far right side. Then we're going to click right here. We're going to come all the way up to the top, and we're going to drop that dimension. Why it didn't drop in line with the other one, I don't know. There we go. Okay. So now we've got this dimension. So we've got 1.375, which is incorrect because I drew this thing wrong. I'll have to fix that here in just a second. Okay. And this is one of the reasons that we do drawings. And in all engineering applications, you do what's called a drawing check. Okay, so when you finish this thing off, you're going to hand it off to somebody else, and they're going to check it, make sure that it's right. So you do always have that checks and balance. If there's a place that's trying to get you to go around that, but they have the ability to do it, try to push back. It's always a better idea to always have your stuff checked. Okay, so I've got this one here, this half of the length here. So, but I know that it's wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to the model, and I'm going to change it. To get back to the model from a print, this is a print that we're looking at here from a drawing. We're going to go ahead and click on the outside. So what we're doing is we're clicking in the view, but not on the model. So here's the difference. Here's in the view. Here's on the model. I can click on the model and click in the view. I'm going to click in the view, not on the model. I'm going to hit open part. Come to here. Now I'm just going to alter that width, which is what I messed up on. It is this guy right here. That width there is 5 inches. Okay, so now you can see that made it significantly shorter. We cut off a ½ inch on either side. And now, if I go ahead and change back to my drawing, I'm going to hit save on that. I'm going to go back to my drawing. And you can see that my drawing automatically updated to 0.875, which is what it actually is supposed to be. And with that 0.875, based on that and another dimension that we'll have here in just a minute, we're going to know that this is centered. Okay? So a couple of the, we actually are going to add one dimension to the book. The book's got a dimension like this, and it's got a an assumed center here with this this center slot here. We're actually going to put in the dimension for that center slot. So we're going to hit our dimension tool. We're going to click on the far left side. Going to click on the right side of that slot, not the dimension. We don't want to actually click the dimension. Right side of that slot, come up, and we're going to drop that dimension there. Okay. So this guy got all screwy. There we go. Okay. So that's all of our dimensions that we're going to be dropping on the front view of our part. Now you can see that I can click on this and it's going to rotate around. Those dimensions are all going to go with my view. Those are all attached to that view. So now I'm going to come up here to the top and I'm going to show you guys a little bit easier of a way to be able to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the view. Okay, we're clicking on in the view but not on the part. Now this is important with this one because sometimes if you click on the part, it's going to pull the dimensions in for just the specific thing that you clicked on and not the whole part. So I'm going to click in the view, but not on the part. I'm going to come up here to Model Items. I'm going to click on Model Items, and it brings me a bunch of stuff. So the source is going to be selected feature or entire model. We're going to go to entire model. So that selected feature is the part that it could bring in just the dimensions for a selected thing. So we're going to say entire model. We are not going to import items into all views because we've already got one of these views inserted here. And down here below that, we've got the dimensions. This is the stuff that it's actually importing. So these are dimensions marked for drawings. This is not marked for drawings. This is line instance and revolution. This one's tolerance. This one is whole wizard profiles. This one is whole wizard locations. Let's go ahead and click that one because if we followed it in the book, we put these in via the whole wizard. So these are all located via the whole wizard. And then this one is GD or this one is whole callouts. Let's go ahead and hit that one too, because again, those holes are done with the whole wizard. So this is going to import the callout for those holes. Okay. So we don't have any annotations in there. We don't have any reference geometry. So let's go ahead and hit our green check mark. And there is all of our information that we had in our model in the first place. Okay? So you can see that this dropped in a bunch of stuff that we're going to use, a bunch of stuff that we've already got down here. Now, if you're looking at these and you can see a difference between the two dimensions. So we've got the dimensions that we put down here on the bottom, the dimensions that were imported up here at the top. And you can see that they're slightly different. The ones at the top are black, the ones at the bottom are gray. The gray dimensions are the dimensions that we manually put in. Gray dimensions have no direct correlation with the model. These are just reference dimensions that we put in. They're uneditable. These dimensions up here in black, if I double click on one of these, it's going to give me this modifying box, which means I can actually modify the model from my 3D space here, which is, it's kind of a nifty little feature, okay? So, first of all, there's some dimensioning in here that we don't need. There's some dimensioning in here that we're going to put on this view over here on the right. So the first one that we're going to get rid of, let's go ahead and get rid of this 2-inch here. The reason we're going to get rid of this 2-inch is because, remember I said that we don't, if we can help it, we don't want to extend dimension extension lines through model geometry. And this one right here is going through model geometry. It won't if we put it down here. So let's go ahead and get rid of that one. All gone. Okay. Next up, let's go ahead and get rid of this one because we've got this line, this one right here. So go ahead and get rid of that one. Same with this 0.5 inches here. Now let's pull our overall width of our part down here. Okay, so those are the dimensions that we're going to keep on this top view. Now let's go ahead and clean some of those up a little bit. So let's start up here. We've got our hole call out. This you can see is directly attached to that hole. It will always point at that hole no matter where we put it. So let's just put it over here to the side a little bit. Nice and clean. Alright, so we've got a 0.375 here. We've got a 0.375 here. Let's grab this one. You can see that our hole, or our lines are kind of going through it. Let's pull it on the inside here. And the reason that I'm going on the inside and not the outside is, if I go on the outside, you can see that it's slightly close to being related to this one up here. We want to minimize that as much as possible. So we're going to pull it to the inside. We're going to do the same thing with the opposite side. Then we've got a radius here for our fillets and rounds. I do not like how that is placed in here. So let's go ahead and see if we can modify that, because I don't like the way that that's in there. So let's go back up here to our options. Again, we're going to go to Document Properties. We're on Dimensions, and we're going to go down to Radius. You can see here that it's got this radius selected, and it's pointing straight to it. And again, going parallel to that, we want to click on the middle one. I don't like that parallel stuff. Parallel dimensions make them hard to read. We don't want to make anything hard to read, right? We don't want to make people either turn the paper sideways or turn their head sideways to read a number, okay? So we want to go ahead and click on this middle one to make that number always horizontal when you're looking at the paper. Now let's go ahead and hit OK. you can see that it's going to update that, and now we've got a 0.125. Now, there's a lot of dimensions going on down here. I don't like that. I don't like how many dimensions we got going on down there. So let's go ahead and move this guy. I'm going to move this way up here away from all of these dimensions we've got down here. So to do that, I can go ahead and just click on that. Now you can see I clicked and I'm dragging. I clicked like right on the end of the arrow. Okay, we've got a square. That's what it's pointing at. In the circle, that's the end that the arrow is actually on. So I'm going to click on the square. And as soon as I click and hold and drag, you can see that that turns to a red kind of no access, don't drop it here point. However, if I come across any one of the other fillets, you can see that it changes to an arrow with a line. And that means that I can aim it at that, and I can drop it, and there it pulled that radius dimension up here. Now I'm just going to rotate it around so that it's pointing a little bit better. And there we go. Now we've got our radius up here at the top pointing down to that. And that is the completion of our second view. Go ahead and head to the next video for how to do the third one.